Welcome to Fireside Jets. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Moran. Today, we want to take a look at some minicamp updates and news coming from the Jets camp. Some good stuff, good quotes from, Mike LaFleur and Robert Saleh, and a little update on Mekhi Becton. Maybe an insurance policy is needed there just as a precautionary measure coming off the knee issue. But some good positive updates on that knee, of course. So I'm definitely excited to talk about Mekhi Becton and some of these offensive playmakers that Saleh and Mike LaFleur just seem to be very excited about. Versatile, flexible, dynamic, a lot of really fun words to use when describing these playmakers. And I think that that translates to the football field. And we've seen it with Elijah Moore. We saw what Breece Hall at Iowa. We saw it with Garrett Wilson at Ohio State. Like, these guys have the capabilities to be phenomenal football players. Now it's just about putting it on an NFL field and seeing if they can translate against better talent. But Ryan, before we dive into the minicamp takeaways and the latest news, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing great, Alex. I appreciate it. And, there've definitely been some, good things coming out, from camp. There were a ton of coaches and players made available to the media yesterday. Michael LaFleur, Jeff Ulbrich, and Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, Laken Tomlinson, and, really enjoyed some of the insights shared there. And, it sounded like Zach Wilson had a good practice yesterday. You saw the Jets post some clips, the one to Corey Davis, which looked like a nice play. So, obviously there's still no pads yet, obviously, like we've discussed in past episodes, and it's a lot of 7-on-7. There's no running game or anything like that yet, not as much physicality, but, it's fun to conversate over, and it gives these players just some sort of a foundation individually and collectively as a team. So when things really ramp up and training camp starts for real, these guys are ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about Mekhi Becton first and foremost. And we've discussed him a couple episodes ago. We still discussed Riley Reef as a guy that brought in as a potential signing. Hasn't made any signing yet, but that could happen in the future depending on how Mekhi Becton progresses through minicamp and then into training camp. The expectation is that he will be available for training camp, but the number one goal is having him ready for week 1 of the regular season, right? That's the number one goal, and I think that Mekhi Becton is probably on his way toward accomplishing that. But Robert Saleh did say, his knee structurally is all good. Everything seems to be progressing in the right way. He's at the facilities. He's there. He's making progress. He's with the team. And I think that's a huge bonus for him. He was kind of walking around, like jogging around yesterday. I'm not sure. I think he's going to speak to the media today. So we'll get you some more of those quotes later on for tomorrow's episode. But definitely a guy, we'll figure out what his weight is, how, in shape he is at this point in time, especially, coming off of the knee injury. But in the meantime, they've had George Font performing, left tackle duty. So haven't really been doing many running drills, but a lot of, some pass setting stuff when getting Zach Wilson involved and just kind of focusing in at one thing at a time. We'll talk about Mike LaFleur's comments in a moment regarding Zach Wilson and his progression. But Mekhi Becton so far has been kind of impressing, just the way that his size is just monstrous, right? So there's a couple quotes I do want to share with you guys. And the first one comes from Mike LaFleur himself. He says about Becton, he's a very large man that is hard to run around in the pass game. And then for being such a big man, he's got a great first step to get on players and move them in the run game. Our scheme or any other scheme, he's got the talent because of that elite God-given size that he has. The thing for Mekhi is just for him putting himself in the best situation going forward. So I think that for the most part, like, Mekhi is going to be a stud in this scheme if he can maintain his health. Like, that's basically what Mike LaFleur sounds like is the main factor here. And of course, health is been the major factors for a lot of players that play on the MetLife turf. If you look at the Giants, they are basically a graveyard of injuries every single season. Our receivers, most of them don't have ankles anymore. They have wheelies. It's insane. So now you look at Mekhi Becton and he's having that knee issue. Of course, he kind of got rolled up on, so it wasn't because of the turf, but once that damage is done to the ligaments, it's never the same. Like, if you have ever had a knee injury, those ligaments never return to 100%. They're always more prone to injury in the future. So they need to take it really careful with Mekhi Becton. They need to make sure he's 100% healthy, which is why I imagine having him at the facilities and kind of just doing basic individual work is essential. But Ryan, what is your impression right now of Mekhi Becton, his progress, and what are you thinking about him?
For sure. So obviously the injury is tough at his size, but he just turned 23 years old 2 months ago. So, he does have youth on his side, in terms of just less tread on the tires. I mean, I don't even know if he's played over 15 games in the NFL yet. His rookie year, he was banged up and missed some time. And obviously last year he played, 2 or 3 quarters of the first game. So, he's definitely got that on his side, not too much mileage. I think in terms of the scheme fit, I love some of LaFleur's comments yesterday on him. But obviously, really what you said there, those are my main takeaways. Just the first step in the running game, and obviously just his size, how, special it is that he can move, for someone as big as he is. And, he's really a scheme fit. Like before said, I think his natural ability alone, you've got to find ways to just put him in positions to flourish. Um, so, I think at this point in time, I would love Riley Reef. I think that's something we've obviously both agreed on. And, just to have that insurance for Zach Wilson, obviously at the end of last season, he was out there with not a whole lot and it was tough. And you don't want to put him through that again this year. I think the depth is improved for the most part at back, at tight end, on the interior of the offensive line. But to add, just to kind of ease Max Mitchell in and let him develop early on, and to have, your two starters going into camp and Fant and Becton, LaFleur did say that they have a plan, as a coaching staff on how they're going to sort out the reps, I guess, in training camp. And he did say that, Fant has earned that opportunity to continue to compete at left tackle. And ultimately, I do think Fant will play at left and Becton will be at right. But, ultimately it's going to be nice to have two really good tackles like that out there. And I think with Becton, LaFleur said it was good to see him yesterday. You hear him, you hear Lakin Thompson, you hear Breece Hall yesterday all speak on the fact that he's just so big, and to be able to move like he does is really, unique. And to be able to add him into the mix and just get him, reps in the system, get him back up to, football shape. Obviously, it's one thing to physically be in shape, but you got to be playing football and, going at full speed to be ready to go for the Baltimore Ravens week 1. And, hopefully come training camp, he's full go.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Ravens are still an aggressive defense. I know Wake Martindale coming over to the Giants now, but, their defense is still going to be aggressive. They always have that mentality, and you got to be prepared on the offensive line for those guys. But, George Fant, I personally feel like he should be the starting left tackle. I think Mekhi Becton's better at right guard at this point. Just coming off the injury, you need a little bit more consistency, and you need to have that chemistry with Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson has essentially no chemistry with Mekhi Becton at this point. He trusts George Fant. So I think that should be the primary thing to consider right now. That doesn't mean that Mekhi Becton couldn't transition back to the left side in the future. But I think for now, putting him at right tackle is probably for the best as he eases his way back into the lineup here. But some pretty good positive stuff on Mekhi Becton. I think maybe having an insurance policy on him, whether that be Max Mitchell, whether that be, Riley Reef, is a good thing to consider, because with that knee injury, we just don't know where he's going to be after, training camp and during the regular season when it eventually starts. We just don't know where he's going to be just yet.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the faster that you can, stamp, hey, this is what we feel like is going to be a best going into week 1 versus Baltimore, the faster we can do that, the better. I think it will play itself out, fairly quickly in terms of when we get back, it's, we're rolling. We're running the football, and, we're going to see at every single position, not just the tackle, but there's a lot of positions based off the question you just asked with the tight ends and the running backs and the receivers. I mean, all those guys want to contribute. I want to get them all out on the field. They all want to be on the field, but ultimately there can only be 5 skill positions out there at a time, so it'll all play itself out. It's going to be what you want in an NFL building is you want competition. You want that in any building, right? At any level, the more competition you can get, obviously it's going to be a little bit more stress on the particular player, but that stress is a good thing. And the guys that can battle through that and come to work and compete every day are only going to get themselves better, obviously, but in turn it's going to make the Jets better.
But offensively, I'm pretty excited about this team. Mike LaFleur had some really great stuff to say about Zach Wilson. Tell me a little bit about Zach Wilson's practice yesterday.
Sure. So, I mean, all the buzz was that, he had a good practice, obviously, to this point, and it's all overblown. I think you just try and, take the good at this time of the year. Obviously, the first couple practices, there were some of those reports he was starting slow and whatnot. And he was picking it up as all those practices went on. And it seemed like yesterday, a lot of the beat reporters were indicating it was a good practice. The Jets, there were a couple of clips, like I said, the Corey Davis one that went, up on social media. And, I think at this time of the year with Zach, you just want to, like LaFleur said, his focus has been great. And to know what's going to come when training camp arises in a couple months, I think allows Zach in the moment to just make the most of these reps, be able to really assess himself in the classroom on film and, just know that he has all the ability, just, what are the fine-tuned details that he's got to continue to hone in on. And, I think with Zach, he's really primed for a big second year. I think that the talent around him, I think the, continuity now in the system, just the chemistry with LaFleur and, a lot of the players he's out there with, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Corey Davis. I think it's, really setting Zach up for, a big second season. And, it was good to hear that yesterday after, like I said, some of the early buzz, even though there's no pads and they're not at full speed yet, yesterday he, did a pretty good job for himself out on the practice field.
Yeah, and look, that's what you want to see, right? Mike LaFleur had some pretty good quotes and comments about Zach Wilson and just being like, the daily focus, just being dialed in at one thing at a time and just staying dialed into that. So, I think that when you're a rookie, it's like, drinking water out of a fire hose. That's the phrase that, coaches use a lot for rookies. It's just a lot of information. It's overwhelming. And sometimes you can get lost in translation there. I think Zach Wilson definitely had some problems in terms of just overstimulated in terms of just so much information, the injury, the offensive line just falling apart at the seams at times early in the season. It came together towards the latter portion, which he had a couple of good games to end the campaign. But his beginning was really tough and it was really rough. It was not like what he was used to at BYU, where he could just run around and no one would ever catch him, and he would just sling the ball 50 yards downfield and he'd be like, a guy would be wide open. That's not how it is in the NFL. There's a guy down there waiting for you to throw that ball so he can intercept it. There's monstrous defensive edge rushers that are chasing your ass to the sideline, and you don't have that amount of time. You can't sidestep them like, unless you're Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen. Zach Wilson isn't those guys. He has the mobility, he has that shiftiness to him, but he still has to learn how to use it at the NFL level. So it's a lot different. And I think that focusing in on one thing at a time is essential for him. And the coaching staff is doing a good job of really making sure that he is hyper-focused on perfecting, one thing at a time. So that way he can really construct a full foundation of what he wants to be this upcoming season.
I think guys are in a really good place. We're obviously further along this year than we were last year. Guys are understanding exactly what they're being asked on in all three phases, whether it's special teams, offense, and defense. From a schematic standpoint, the language barrier of having a new staff and new players is down, where you could see Zach, he'll make a throw and he's like, he already knows what Rob and Mike are going to tell him. He's like, I know. And he'll point to where he needs to, so same thing with the O-line, D-line, all the way across the board. So that's the biggest part from the communication barrier has been fantastic. But obviously I'm an optimist. I think we're in a really, really good place. I really do. What it looks like from a result standpoint, that's for all y'all to judge. But we're a lot further along this year than we were a year ago.
So I'm excited to see his growth and development. It is nice to see that he's kind of starting to put it together in minicamp and training camp. We'll see a lot more. I know the Giants and Jets are expected to have a joint practice, so that'll be really fun to watch. We'll get to see both quarterbacks and the battle of the New York quarterbacks, and we'll see what happens with Daniel Jones. I'm very unsure at this point in time, but it is exciting. And like one other really cool thing is, Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator. So we'll head to the defensive side for a second. Had some really interesting things to say about the chemistry of these guys in the locker room. So Ulbrich obviously been in the league for quite a while. He said yesterday, in my time in the NFL, I've never been around a locker room with the character of this group. It is hard to be an a-hole on this team. It really is. You've got a lot of really good guys that love this game, not only an a-hole, but it's hard to survive here if you're not a self-starter and you don't love this game. So like that's part of their draft profile, right? They went and got like Jermaine Johnson, definitely a guy that has a great, personality and charisma. Sauce Gardner, super confident, charismatic. He just bought DJ Reed's #1 for $50K. So, they're definitely making deals and having fun behind the scenes, but it's a really good thing to hear that this defensive group is so tight knit already and that they have all these great personalities to really fuel a positive experience and build something special. So Ryan, what is your impression of Jeff Ulbrich's comments about this defense and, just how the defense is really coming together as a unit, and especially with so many rookies and free agents coming on board?
Absolutely. I mean, it indicates what you said, Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, they're looking for a certain, DNA and just a human being as much as anything. And, you said it with Sauce, Jermaine Johnson. I think you even go beyond that with CJ Mosley, someone who's as respected as he is. You have Quinnen Williams, who's as, guy always has a smile on his face. You have Jordan Whitehead, who I think kind of brings, a good attitude to the defense. And overall, the group just is able to mesh from there. You have guys who work hard like Carl Lawson. I think that the talent, with all those guys added into the mix, a healthy Lawson, it's going to give Jeff Ulbrich and Robert Saleh more to work with defensively. And, I think ultimately a better unit this year. Obviously, it can't be much worse than it was last year. And, one other takeaway I had from Laken Tomlinson's press conference is to, really speak on the character of these guys and what they've looked brought in. He was asking all the beat reporters their names. You really don't see things like that very often. And it just speaks volumes to, what type of, people they're really trying to bring in and the type of culture they're trying to build.
Yeah, as we know, culture is a pretty important thing. You know, Rex Ryan, we look back at the AFC championships the Jets made, and like that team was very, very built on a fun, dynamic culture. Rex Ryan brought a lot of energy to that squad, and they kind of fed off of it. So Saleh has that, right? Saleh has that energy. I would even argue he's a better coach in some respects. Maybe not a head coach just yet. There's still a lot left to be uncovered. But as a defensive coordinator, he's one of the best in the league. You know, coming from a 49ers team that was dominant on the defensive side, he's a stud. So if he can translate all of those positives to being a head coach, then the Jets are in really good shape, and he's got the energy and the charisma to really make something special here. And it seems like the players really like him. So that's a big bonus too. And, you know, he really spoke about some, you know, offensive playmakers like Garrett Wilson, saying he was really versatile and, you know, great playmaker. Said Breece Hall is excellent. And, you know, they expect a lot from him, and like, you know, to keep an eye on him and like his hands, because he can also catch the football. So a lot of really great stuff coming out of Jets drive today and, you know, yesterday. So I'm pretty excited about this team moving forward. We'll keep you guys updated on anything that is coming out, obviously, in news and updates. And once training camp stuff comes around, we'll get you obviously all the information from those as well, because, you know, there'll be daily stuff going on, just performance based and injury updates and all the stuff that you guys need to be aware of. So you can follow this Jets team like a super fan and help build this community with us, because we're here to enjoy the process and really enjoy the growth of this team for once. You know, it's been a while. So I think we're all really excited for the process. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe.